Me?
Yeah, recording right now.
All right. All right. I'm so sorry about yesterday. I really thought I was recording.
It's completely fine. It happened.
All right. So, where do you want to begin?
Um, you can begin if you want.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said you could begin if you want.
Okay. All right. So in my point of view, I really think that the creature is there's a double standard in the way that the creature is judged based on the fact that I think how the environment has affected him has he's basically a creature that sympathizes with humans, that wants to be loved, that wants to be cared for, right? Like a child would. But despite his wants, what he gets is something completely different. And on page 127, give me 1 second. I have here what chiefly struck to me was gentle manners of these people, and I longed to join them, but dared not. I remembered too well the treatment I had suffered the night before from the barbarous villagers, and resolved, whatever course of conduct I might hereafter think it right to pursue, that for the present I would remain quietly in my hovel, watching and endeavoring to discover the motives which influence their actions. So he experiences, um, as we know from reading the text, that his protectors, what he calls them, he actually tries to go in a passive manner and talk to the blind man that can't see his physical features and see if he can gain his sympathy to be able to then talk to the rest of the family members. But unfortunately, that doesn't work out because even though at the beginning the man is able to sympathize with the creature, once his family members come and see him, they immediately start assaulting him, basically. And I mean, it isn't the only time. So I really think that the creature wants to be a good person, but unfortunately cannot. And I don't know if you want to, if you have maybe an opposing view.
No, I totally agree. I feel as if the reason why he feels the way he does is because every time he does try to go into these social environments, they're always attacking him. And the only way he could be heard is if he does something the way that they paint him to be. But when he did kill Henry, when he did kill Elizabeth, it was all because of it was built off anger that he had towards Victor.
You're
And
right.
I feel as if in the beginning, on page 78, where Victor says, once I, once I often ask myself, did the principle of life proceed? It was a bold question and one which has ever been considered a mystery, yet with how many things we upon the brink of becoming acquainted, a coward or careless did not restrain our inquiries. So I felt as if before he had created Frankenstein, he had this preconception that he was going to challenge God. And that was when we had discussed yesterday where you didn't really think about him challenging God.
Yes, and I really didn't think about it until you mentioned it yesterday. But I think that's a very important like point. And I also remember you mentioned how, or we discussed how there might be some kind of justice in what the creature does. That's kind of basically the justice for Victor.
Right.
Um, and I go back again to that. There's that double standard of how Victor is judged and how the creature is judged, despite both making the same kind of crimes, basically. Because Victor doesn't tell anyone that he knows who killed his brother. So, to a certain degree, he's an accomplice to the murder. And he created the murderer, quote unquote, right? And there's an example of that double standard on page 119 where it says, this is the creature talking. You accuse me of murder, and yet you would, with a satisfied conscience, destroy your own creature. Oh, praise the eternal justice of man. Yet I ask you not to spare me. Listen to me, and then if you can, and if you will, destroy the work of your hands. So, I mean, Victor is accusing him of murder, yet Victor would do the same in an instant. And if they were to commit the same crime, the creature is the one that's going to get the most blame, no matter what he does. Because we also see that when he's in the forest, he saves a girl. She's about to fall, and he saves her. And afterwards, the little girl's, I believe it's her brother, comes and starts beating on the creature, thinking that the creature did something to the little girl, when in reality he was trying to save her. So it doesn't really matter what the creature does. In the views of the villagers, he just can't do anything right based on just the way he looks.
Right. And that's what I mentioned in the Slack when Professor Coppola, when we did the Slack on, I believe it was Frank. I'm not sure which one it was, but we did discuss how his appearance can also affect the way that people think of him. Because when Victor first created him, Victor didn't really think about his appearance. He thought more of what the creature could do for him as far as his ego. And the same thing on page 119. Before that, it says, "Yet it is in your power to recommence me and deliver them from an evil which it only remains for you to make so great, that not only you and your family, but thousands of others shall be swallowed up in the world of its rage." So I feel like his anger isn't really so much of the villagers that were attacking him and making him seem to be this evil person. It was more Victor because Victor left him alone when he really needed him.
Uh, I agree and I disagree at the same time.
Okay.
Because I agree with you that he is frustrated with Victor. He
Yes.
is. But at the same time, I feel like that frustration is not just precisely at Victor, but the circumstances regarding the lack of love, I guess, or the lack of protection that he got from Victor when he needed it most, like a child. Because his own creator despises him. So what future does that hold for him? And he's he basically he learns on his own everything, and he learns about different topics from just by watching the in the forest, the DeLacy family. He he learns languages, he learns geography, he learns history. And one of the topics that he learns is about governments and history and wars. And I think this is a crucial moment in learning about like justice or the injustice, because the hatred that's already inside him gets filled with knowledge, and now he has somewhere to pinpoint how he feels and what he can do about it based on what he's learned from the past. And on page 135, we have a passage. For a long time, I could not conceive how one man could go forth to murder his fellow, or even why there were laws and governments. But when I heard the details of vice and bloodshed, my wonder ceased, and I turned away with disgust and loathing. So he's somewhat still, I would say, innocent, but as you said, like he has this frustration against Victor, and after being injured, assaulted, and put down so many times, I think he understands what hate begins to feel like. And having no justice to serve him, um, he ultimately just takes justice into his own hands and says, if I'm going to be labeled evil, I might as well be evil. So that was.
Yeah, that was a deep quote.
And I mean, there's a lot of also like there's supposed like justice that we have within the book of when people go to a court and they're supposed to get justice, right? But in reality, what we see in these so-called justices is basically a trial that a person is judged based on appearances. And we see that in the trial of Justine, who doesn't really get a voice or a vote. She's just automatically condemned based on the evidence of the picture that was found within her. And then we have on page 138, we have Safi's father, where it says, he was tried and condemned to death. The injustice of his sentence was very flagrant. All Paris was indignant, and it was judged that his religion and wealth, rather than a crime alleged against him, had been the cause of his condemnation. So we have the creature who can do nothing right in the eyes of the town, of the villagers, of society, and is condemned for any action he takes that's ultimately going to be considered wrong. We have Justine, who was unable to get justice despite having people come to her aid and speak on behalf of her. We also have Safi's father, who gets condemned based on his religion and his wealth. So there's a continuous cycle of supposed justice that is to be implemented, but in reality, it's just the lack or injustice based on getting judged on your looks. Much of what we have in society today.
Right.
So, I mean, this book was written in 1818, but we're in 2019, and yet we still have the same issues.
Right, because we still judge people based on their appearance.
Exactly. And many
But
times people don't get the trial they deserve for many reasons, but one of those reasons also being the injustice based on stereotypes.
they unfortunately they become incarcerated.
And it's not only that. I mean, it goes beyond just being incarcerated. It's the time, the consequences, the aftermath of everything that happened after supposed justice gets implemented, and when sometimes the facts aren't all there.
Also
So
the trauma, what you went through when you was put into that situation.
I mean, I'm not really sure if Mary Shelley did this on purpose, or if this was some kind of like mockery of her time. But I really feel that throughout the story, there is no sense of justice, in my opinion. It could be argued. And I know you're very good at that. um, you really bring us some good points. I just feel like that there really is no sense of justice for none of the characters. Um, and even, I guess, ultimately, even for Victor, there's really no sense of justice because he created this, and he's gonna have to live with what he created, knowing that he can't kill it, he can't stop it. The only thing he can do is put some kind of hold on it by not giving him a companion. But even then, I mean, I really don't know, like, if there is some kind of justice within the book.
No, I agree. There isn't any justice. I believe that Mary Shelley wanted to show people that even though you may do something bad, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna get um, a retaliation or you're gonna get a consequence for it. Because Victor's consequence isn't so much of him being broadcasted or being indicted. It's more of a self-reflection. So he had
Mm,
to look at himself because when he was writing the letters to his family, he was telling them how much the journey is good and how everything is going great. And then after that, everything just started to turn for him
that's true.
because the monster wasn't something that he created him for. So there's so many themes in a book as far as enlightenment, death, but there's just one commonality between it all. And I believe it's his ego because everything that has been done was because he wanted to challenge God.
Oh, I remember that point that you made yesterday that I was like, I hadn't thought about it, but it's true. Like, you're right. Like, he does. You can expand on it better because I remember you did it better yesterday. Um, but yeah, I hadn't thought about it until yesterday that you mentioned it because I mean, he wants to challenge God to a certain degree, but I also think it's challenging not only God, but it's challenging everyone around him. His ego is so big
Yes.
that he thinks he can outwit Professor Waldman, Professor Kremp, and ultimately, like you said, God, to give life. There you go. That's what you said yesterday, to give life to someone. And I was like, I didn't think about it. Like, God actually gives life to someone. And
Right. So it's a progression.
to think that God,
Right. Because before anything, if you want to challenge God, you have to challenge the people who have done so. So if he was able to challenge these people and do something greater or as equal as they can, then he can also do something greater or equal to God. Because God creates people and he created the creature, but the creature isn't so much of a human. He gets human qualities from things that he learns. So he had to learn the habitual things from the family. He had to learn how to communicate, how to read. So I believe um, everything is more or less of a like everything just happens step by step in my perspective. It could be different for you.
I mean,
I wish
I agree.
Dan was here because she had good points as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that I mean, in regards to the creature, I think he tries and he tries to assimilate himself. He tries to learn the language. He tries to become educated with the limited resources that he has, with the type of schooling that he receives. Because Victor is going to this really good university where he's getting formal education, and the creature isn't. He's learning from a forest by looking on inside a house, and yet he has more sentimental values than does a quote unquote educated person. That would be in this case Victor. And despite his many qualities, he's unable to get the acceptance from society, even though he tries in so many ways. Like, and it's just sad that
Yeah, because um his characteristics are negative, but he does positive things in a way that he's vocal about how he feels when he does confront Victor head on. And he wanted Victor to create a female creature for him to have a companion, and Victor declined. Well, not really declined, but he really shrugged it over his shoulder because Victor is scared that if he creates a female creature, it can end up the same way that the, the creature that already exists.
and I remember when we mentioned this yesterday, not only does when he wants a creature to be made, he wants someone as hideous as he is.
Right.
And I didn't quite understand if it was hideous in a physical aspect or hideous in
You mentioned that.
like in a psychological aspect. What point was he trying to get at when he says that he wants someone as hideous as he is? So I mean, it could be like just like what it says, hideous in the physical sense, but I'm not sure if at this point he wants someone as hideous as how his heart feels. So
You can also be hideous figuratively. Like, your personality can be hideous. You could be a disgusting person. And when you're hideous, you don't want to be seen. You don't want to be um, evaluated. So it could mean internally or externally.
I mean, certainly, it wasn't explicitly said in the text,
Right.
so it's certainly up for aid for examination. So I don't know. Do you have points that you want to bring up?
I believe that's all I have to say. Is there anything you have to say?
Nope. I think I'm good.
Okay. So this is for lit 300. Um, the discussion about justice or injustice. Well, that's it.
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye, Shakim.
Bye.
Hope you
Enjoy
guys
your night.
enjoy.
Enjoy.